Hello, this is Dr. Jazieri. This is not my typical video topic that I talk about, but I wanted to talk to all of the photographers out there who are very excited about the new Canon cameras that have come up and some of the criticisms that Canon has been getting for a few years. So I'm not a professional photographer, I'm an enthusiast. You can see some of the photos I'll post it on Instagram at Dr. Jaz OC, D-R-J-A-Z, O as in orange, C as in cat. And also have a Facebook account under Dr. Michael Jazieri, and I'll put the names down below. So I've been a Canon user for 30 years. My first camera, when I decided to get into photography, actually I was lucky to get it from my brother, and it was a Canon A2E. It was a film camera. Some of you probably remember it. The Canon A2 and the A2E were actually the first 5 series cameras that came out, and eventually they became the 5Ds. And the version that I got, the E stood for eye control. And it was an amazing camera. I mean, you could look in the viewfinder, and where you looked, it would track and focus. At that time, I wore glasses, and it kind of was hit and miss, for me at least. But some patients, I'm a physician. Some users swore by it, and it came in, and then the next camera that came out, which was a lower model, was the Canon Elan, E-L-A-N, and that also had a eye control version. And then after that, they just didn't pursue it. There were some rumors that that technology may come back in some of the newer models, but to be honest with you, with the new camera just has come up, the R5 and R6, the autofocus and the animal eye control and the human eye control seems to be quicker than the human eye. So probably they're not going to pursue that technology. But what I've noticed, Canon, this is the pattern that Canon had always had, and again, some of the long-term Canon users can confirm this. Every once in a while they come out with a revolutionary camera like the Canon A2E, and then they just kind of go sideways. The cameras just kind of go like that. There's no really a revolution. It's more of a minor adjustments. And the other revolutionary camera that came out that everybody talks about is the Canon 5D Mark IV, which was the first still camera that had 1080p video built into it. And a lot of movies, a lot of things were made with that camera initially when it came out. And then Canon again kind of went sideways, and there's a joke that every 4 years Canon makes a camera that's 4 years old. So but that's how they've been, and when I was shooting film, and Nikon seemed to be coming up with all these new cameras that were more exciting than Canon, but Canon has always always focused on their lenses. If you look at the history of Canon, at least since the past 30 years, they've always kind of been on the cutting edge of lens technology. And they did that with their mirror system too. When the Canon EOS R came out, I mean, it's a good camera. I've tried it, I've played with it. I really love the grip on that camera. I have large hands, and so all my cameras that I have a Canon ATD right now. It's an APS-C camera, and I always had a grip on every camera that I bought, because I have large hands. But that grip on the camera was fantastic, and I almost felt like I didn't need a battery grip. I still would buy a battery grip because sometimes when I use flashes or big lenses, it's balanced more. But it was a good camera, but compared to what Nikon did and what Sony had done, it was below the competition, I would say, fairly. But then they came out with these amazing RF lenses, right? Everybody's talking about them. I haven't heard any negative criticisms from these lenses. And that's, I think, from a business standpoint, you know, I think there's a reason Canon is still the #1 camera seller and probably will continue to be. Because once you get involved and get kind of, you know, you put a lot of money into buying a lot of lenses, it's much harder for you to switch systems than if you have a good camera with not very good lenses. You know, it's kind of like you can buy a high-end stereo system, but if your speakers aren't very good, it's just, you know, eventually you're probably going to jump ship and buy new speakers, you know. So I think that's an appropriate analogy. So now, though, Canon, unfortunately, did a lot of things, but because everybody was kind of down with the EOS R and their mirror system, the Rpk, which got some good reviews, the problem is it has a sensor of the 6D Mark II, and the low light is really bad. I tried that camera. Unfortunately, the low light performance is just not very good. So, you know, they brought up the Canon 90D, which is an APS-C camera. It got great reviews. I love my Canon 80D. It's a great all-around performer. And the 90D has 32 megapixels. The highest APS-C camera that I know besides that is the Fuji X-T 4 and 3. You know, they both have 26 megapixels. And they added 6 megapixels more. I mean, that's a significant improvement. You know, nobody talked about that. I mean, that was a great achievement, but it just kind of got lost with the, you know, with this mirrorless letdown that people were talking about. And now we have the R5 and the R6, and everybody's kind of disappointed with the R5's overheating, the R6 overheating. I mean, I think the problem was Canon kind of gave the impression that there was no overheating issue, at least initially. And then right before the camera was coming out, or actually as soon as it came out, they discussed that. It was written in the manuscript, though, in the manual. So yes, from a movie standpoint, you know, you get anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes before it heats. So if you do really want to go that route, you have to buy 2 or 3 of these cameras, and now you're talking about, you know, $12,000 for 3 of them. But, you know, the fact still remains that the Canon R5 is the first camera, the first stills camera, which shoots 8K video. And the video itself is not a gimmick. I mean, everybody, if you look at all the reviews, nobody has said that the 8K is not sharp. It's the sharpest they have ever seen. So the fact remains that this camera will be known as the first stills camera that shot 8K video. So, I mean, that's in a way revolutionary. And I'm sure Canon, you know, is going to go pretty strong initially, at least. They're probably going to do this again, knowing their history, and they're going to, again, build up on their lenses. That's what they've always done, and I think that's, from a business standpoint, the smart way to go. So then the question is, well, you know, should you buy any of these cameras? You know, the R6, I think, is more, probably more people will buy it because it's a little bit less expensive. The 8K video right now, I think it's a bit ahead of its time. And I think you really have to be in a niche market to use that 8K. The problem that I have with the R6 is, you know, it's a $2,500 full frame camera, but it has a 20 megapixel sensor, which is borrowed from the 1DX Mark III, which again got great reviews. And that really has pushed the technology envelope. You know, I sometimes want to print up to 24 by 36. I think with 20 megapixel you can still upsize it and get that. But remember, I always say any properly exposed and focused, so I mean you have to be in focus. Any file you can print to any size you want as long as you are at the correct viewing distance. So keep that in mind. Again, you can print to any size you want as long as the viewing distance is the correct viewing distance. And a good example is billboards, right? Billboards, most of these files are 2 megapixels or 3 megapixels, and you're watching them from far away. I'm sure you've seen these photos when from close up they look like a bunch of dots, and as you move back they form a face. It's the same idea. But I still wish that, you know, it had a higher resolution, you know, 24, you know, at least 24 or 26 or 30 like the EOS R and 5D Mark IV. But the thing that really personally, and this for me bothers me, is not having that top LCD information. And some of you may not have looked closely, but if you look at the photos of this camera, there's no information panel on the top. And I really want to see what's going on with my aperture, my ISO, my shutter speed. And with this camera, you kind of have to look at the LCD all the time, or look at the viewfinder. You know, for that price, a full frame, you know, to me it's kind of a letdown. So then the question is, well, should you buy the R5? And, you know, my argument is that probably majority of us, whether you're a professional photographer or an enthusiast, probably won't need any new camera. But we all want one, right? It's a toy to some degree. Now, if you're somebody who specializes, let's say, in eagles in flight catching prey, you know, you need something that's really, you know, it's a fast-paced action. I would say, well, yeah, this technology is amazing, and it's gonna increase your chances of getting that once-in-a-lifetime shot, and you maybe will get that shot without going there or spending more time in that area, and that will cost you, that will save you money, right? In the long term, you don't have to go to that place more than once or stay longer. But for, you know, most of us, I mean, how often do you have a client that says, well, what camera system are you using? And, oh, well, you're not using the Sony this or Canon that or Nikon that, so I'm going to another, you know, wedding photographer. I mean, people look at your work and they hopefully like your personality. It's the same with my practice. I mean, you know, they look at my before and afters, and if we click, they usually book. And then we get a lot of referrals. I'm hoping most of you will get referrals too. So, you know, I am currently looking at a full frame camera system. I have a bunch of L lenses that I'm using on my APS-C. I do have some sharp APS-C lenses too, but I have some L ones too. But I really want to go to really fast lenses to do portraits with that kind of dreamy background. And as you know, with APS-C cameras, because of the 1.5 or 1.6 crop, I mean, it's impossible, you know, you have to have an aperture of 0.6, for example, to get a f 1.2 or 1.4. And that lens would be just, I don't even know if probably technologically can be made, but it'll be very expensive and extremely heavy. So I'm looking at that. Right now, you know, for most of you, maybe in my situation, I would say it's hard for me to pay $3,900 for a camera. That's, you know, right now a lot of that cost comes from this novelty of, I think, of having the 8K video. And I mean, I don't do any videos. You know, most of the stuff I do is stills, and I do 1080p for, you know, Instagram or YouTube. So, and Canon is going to come up with new cameras. I'm hoping there may be an EOS R Mark II, which will, you know, have, you know, address some of the issues that the EOS R was found to lack. You know, I mean, the dual card slot. I mean, you know, I think it's nice if you want to do a lot of wedding and stuff. It's nice to have that, you know, but the main problem with the EOS R that I had was it just wasn't, the frame rate was not very good if you wanted to do action or sports photography. I mean, it averaged about one, maybe 2 frames at the most per second that were in focus. You know, the lag time was just not very good. So I'm looking for an all-around solid camera that can do, you know, landscape, portraits, and if I want to do some more action, it has at least some speed. And that was just not very good. So if I purchase the R5, and you're not in a rush, just wait. You know, in a few years the price will drop and the new model will come. I personally don't like to buy used cameras because of the shutter speed. I mean, and there are ways you can count the shutter speed, but you know, it's a mechanical system. It's eventually going to break down. The same thing with lenses. You know, every time you focus, these things are moving in there. So and maybe I'm wrong, but I've just always been hesitant of buying used lenses and cameras. I have bought some used flashes and, like, you know, radio, you know, remote controls for Canon, because I mean, you know, that really doesn't change that much with the time. But that's just me. So I mean, you know, ask yourself, do you really need this camera right now? And the lenses are still expensive. You know, you may stick around. There may be some lower options coming out. And I think this camera with this resolution and just being a mirrorless system, I think they're able to make sharper lenses that may rival at least the L lenses, but at a lower cost. Just because of the way the camera and the way the lens gets close to the sensor. So that's my 2 cents. If you you know, want to go ahead and buy it, go ahead. It's you know, none of these are prohibitively expensive, so most of us can afford it, and you can pay monthly. Most places will let you do that. All right, so that was my 2 cents with Canon. You know, I think Jared Pollan, you know, who many of you know, has said that it was a sleeper of it's going to be a sleeper of the year. And yes, Canon has woken up. They've done a lot of exciting stuff, and I'm sure they'll continue to do a lot of exciting stuff, especially with these new lenses that are coming up. But just remember, they're probably going to slow down their camera systems, unless they're just angry now. I don't know. Maybe they just got tired of hearing all these jokes. But you know, if you're a good photographer and you have a decent system, you're going to make great photos. And good luck to you.